Hi and welcome to Jessie James Beads. My name is Jem and today we're going to work together on some inside the box creativity. Now normally we look to think outside the box, but today I have got the most beautiful window box bead mix to share with you. This is Tidepool. So I'd like to show you what you get inside the box and how we're going to turn that into a pair of earrings. And there's so much beauty inside this box. Lots and lots of projects to create beyond these. Your window bead box mix from Jessie James Beads in the beautiful Tidepool colourway. Let's take a peek inside the box at what we're going to be working with today. You have got acrylic beads, you've got toggle clasps, you've got a pair in there, you've got crystal sparkle, you've got opaques, you've got a bunch of different blue tones with a hint of metallics over the surface, got these fantastic beautifully faceted rondelles. You've got metallic components as well, some of the most beautiful lustrous golds. You have got these really cool components too, so they are drilled through, and we're actually going to be using some of those today to make a pair of earrings. And then you'll see, let me just show you what I had left over after I've made my earrings and a pendant. Can you even see a dent in the mix? There's so much more to make besides the piece we're going to work on together. So let's head into some inside the box creativity together. I'm going to be adding in a pair of ear wires. You can choose whichever style suit you best. I'm also going to be using some 18 gauge round wire. This is a medium temper wire that I'm working on today. I've chosen to work with copper because it shows up really well on the screen. For each earring we're going to be using one of these swirly whirly components with that drill aperture through it. I'm going to also use two of the smaller blue opaque rondelles, two of the golden spacers, and one of these opposite variations, so the drill hole goes through the opposite way to normal for this rondelle, and it's a two-tone bead. Absolutely love it. So I have around about 7 inches of my 18 gauge round wire. I'm going to make sure that it is trimmed flush at the end before we get started, just trimming that very end section away carefully, and I'm going to give that a quick smooth and warm through. Now this is a design that's absolutely suitable to total beginners, not just to jewellery but also to working with wire wrapping. So warming that wire through helps make it smooth, straight and ready to work. I'm now going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to start those rotating around quite close to the tip of the pliers to make quite a small round form. I'm then going to switch to my preferred flat facing pliers. Now you could be using chain nose, like myself you could be using bent chain nose. Any pliers that have two flat surfaces will work, and we're going to push that round form against your non-dominant finger to create a coil that rotates around 2 times. I'm then going to just hold that up for you to have a look. So you can see we've gone around 1 time, then a second time, and then I'm going to give that a little bit of a smooth and a warm through the next section of wire. And at the same time, I'm going to squish down on that flat little disc that we've created. We need that to be nice and strong. Opening and closing those pliers makes it nice and strong. What we're then going to do is just flip that design over for a second. So this is going to form 1/2 of the heart shape down at the bottom of our lovely inside the box creativity earrings. Let's grip the wire just a little way down. It's probably about somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch, the distance between the wire and where I'm placing the pliers. I'm then going to push that wire up at quite an angle, so it's easier to do than it is to see on screen. If I just hold the pliers from underneath, you can see what we've achieved, just pushing that wire back up and then gently opening that out. What we're looking to do now is to recreate a similar size to that nice arching shape over the top of the heart, and you can achieve that with your round nose pliers. So if I bring the round nose pliers in and just sit them opposite to that little double spiral we made, and then draw the wire over the top like so, you can see that that wire comes back down to meet that double spiral that we created. Now what often happens is that this little arc shape that we've made over the top is either too high or too low, and you can just rotate those pliers around to make that sit how you want it to. Now when I'm making earrings, I tend to do this much of the design and then I'll do the exact same thing again, and in that way you'll be able to get two earrings that are of a very similar size and shape. Once you've created the whole earring, you can obviously just trace over the top with your second 7-inch segment of that 18 gauge round wire. So if I just bring that wire down slightly, I'm quite happy that these two halves of the heart are of a similar size. Doesn't really matter if they're not completely the same. I quite like an asymmetric heart in my designs anyway. We're then going to work with as fine a tip pliers as you have, so I'm just going to use my bent chain nose pliers again. I'm going to support that wire as it comes down into the middle of that heart shape. I'm going to draw the wire carefully around so that it comes up and away. If I just drop this down onto the board for a second, you'll see what we're getting at. So it doesn't look too much like a heart yet, but we're going to just mess around with that slightly until it sits a little bit better for us. So one of the ways that you can improve that is to grip hold of the tail of wire that comes up to the top and just sit that centrally in the design. Give that a quick squish. And what we're doing there is just strengthening and straightening that central section. We need this bit to be quite firm. So once you're happy with how your heart looks, and sometimes you can add a little bit of a flare to it by just very, very gently twisting down at the base, and you get a slightly funky heart. Whatever shape you feel drawn to make is the one that will work for you. What we're looking to have here is something that's a flat design, so we don't want any wire sitting on top of any other wire. We want everything to be as though it's between two panes of glass and it's squished flat. Once you're happy that it's squished flat, we're going to just open and close those pliers over the wire again, and we're just setting that shape. We're making sure that we're happy with that and then giving it a squish so that it's nice and solid. We're then going to add the beads on in our chosen order. So I really liked how these opaque rondelle beads looked down at the base of the design. Then I'm going to add in one of these lovely golden spacer beads. That's going to slide all the way down next. Just going to give that a little bit of a smooth to make sure it's nice and straight in the middle there. Now the next bit looks tricky, but I promise you it isn't tricky. What we're going to do is just hold the very end of our design, and we're going to start by threading that wire through one of the holes in our swirly whirly component. So if you allow that to go through, and then you can just allow that to sit up a little bit on top of the component. It helps you to see where it is and enable you to get that through the relevant hole in that beautiful two-tone. Can you see that the drill hole goes through this way instead? So we're looking to get that on the end of the wire. Once it's on the end of the wire, like so, let me just lift that up. You can see I've threaded my bead on and that will spin in the centre. We then need to push that wire up through the second hole and out the other side of our component. So you can see it's come all the way through. If I just push that down slightly, you can see that the whole thing spins. And I love jewellery that has movement in it. Once that has sat down into position, you can have a look, see if you're happy with how everything's coming together, and then we can add the other side of that design. Now you obviously can choose whichever of the beads you desire, but the basic technique, I'm kind of putting a little bit of, I don't know, speech marks or quotation marks either side of that central spinny piece. You, as I say, can use whichever beads you like. Up at the top, we are going to finish off with a wrapped loop. Now this is something that if you plan on working with wire, it's really helpful to learn. So I'm going to grip that wire from underneath, and you can see how my little heart shape is flat to the board. So in the same orientation, if I pop that down on the board, you'll see it's moving in the same plane. So again, as if it's between two panes of glass, that's going off to one side. We're then going to grab those round nose pliers again to create a round form. Roll the pliers around. You can do that in as many parts of a movement as you need. So that looks like a bit of a shepherd's crook at the moment. Pop those round nose pliers back in and draw that wire all the way around. When you get practiced with wire, you can do that all in one move if you like. But if you want to do that in 3 or 4 separate moves and just make sure that that form is round, That's a little bit better. Then we're going to support across the round form. We're not going to press down where one piece of wire crosses over the other. We're just supporting the round section, and then we'll take that tail all the way around to fill up the gap. Now, when you're making earrings, it's important to try and get them to be the same length drop. So I used an imaginary line on my pliers to make the distance between the last bead and where I turned that right angle before I made it into a circular form. So if we flip that design over for a second, I'm going to trim that wire away cautiously, pop that in the scrap pot, and then what we're going to do is finish off by just tidying up this little coil up at the top here. Now do be careful with your beads, we don't want to smash them, we don't want to scratch them, just give that a little bit of a tighten up and then you are good to go. So when you're working with your earring findings, let's have a look and see if this is all going to come together. It absolutely will. So we're going to open the earring finding cautiously, just by flipping that wire out in one side at the bottom there. I'm going to add that earring onto the finding, like so, and then we shall close it back up. Now when you open an earring finding, it's wise to do that as if it's a jump ring. So just move half of that round form open, and then half of it back again. Give it a bit of a squish across to make that nice and strong, and you have yourself an inside the box creativity Tidepool earring. Now there's so much left in this box after you've made your pair of earrings that I can imagine many projects yet to come. There are bead caps, there are beautiful spacers, there's these gorgeous washer-like spacers, lots of different hues of blue and finishes, opaque beads, there are these absolutely gorgeous two-tone flowers, so much more besides to work with.